Security dragged her through the marble lobby like a common criminal while guests filmed everything on their phones. The brass nameplate on the wall read, Thornfield Hospitality Group, and she owned every single property. What started as a routine business check-in was about to become the most expensive 15 minutes in hotel management history. The woman they were throwing out wasn't just any guest. She was their boss, and she was about to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. Welcome to Stories of Black Lives. Before we dive into these powerful stories about respect, justice, and hope, please let us know in the comments which country you're watching from today. If you want to see more stories like this, please hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to like this video. This is one of those touching stories about prejudice and power that seems impossible until it happens. Real-life stories often unfold in ways that challenge everything we think we know about justice and judgment. Aria had arrived that Tuesday morning in her tailored navy suit, carrying a leather briefcase that cost more than most monthly salaries. The Atlanta Grand Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and gold accents. She approached the marble reception desk with quiet confidence. The young blonde clerk barely glanced up from her computer screen. Her name tag read Emma. Have you ever been judged so harshly that people forgot to see who you really were? Aria placed her Platinum American Express card on the counter. Good morning. I'd like to check in, please. Emma's eyes swept over Aria's appearance with unconcealed disdain. She made no move to touch the card. Instead, she leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. Ma'am, this is a 5-star establishment, Emma said, her voice dripping with condescension. Our rooms start at $800 per night. Are you sure you're in the right place? Aria's expression remained calm. I'm quite sure the reservation should be under Blackwood. Emma rolled her eyes dramatically. Look, lady, this isn't a shelter or some budget motel. Maybe you should try the Holiday Inn down the street. It's more appropriate for your situation. Other guests in the lobby began to turn and stare. Aria noticed a young man with his phone out, apparently live streaming the interaction. The viewer count was climbing. 147, 289, 502. I assure you I have a valid reservation, Aria said, her voice steady. She opened her briefcase slightly, revealing legal documents with corporate letterheads. Perhaps we could resolve this professionally. Professional? Emma laughed loudly. Lady, you're making a scene. People like you don't belong in places like this. At that moment, Marcus Sterling, the assistant manager, appeared behind the desk. He was a thin man in his 40s with graying hair and a permanent scowl. He assessed the situation quickly, his gaze lingering on Aria with obvious disapproval. What's the problem here, Emma? Marcus asked. This woman is insisting she has a reservation, but she obviously can't afford to stay here, Emma replied, gesturing dismissively at Aria. I was trying to save her from embarrassment. Marcus nodded approvingly. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is a respectable establishment, and we can't have disruptions disturbing our valued guests. Aria glanced at her Rolex. 10:47 a.m. She had a board meeting in exactly 73 minutes. The helicopter was waiting on the hotel's rooftop helipad. You might want to reconsider this approach, Aria said quietly, pulling out a Platinum Hotel loyalty card. The card gleamed under the lobby lights, clearly marking her as a VIP member. Marcus barely glanced at it. These fake cards are everywhere now. Ma'am, I'm calling security. The live stream viewer count continued climbing. 847, 1,200, 1,847. Comments poured in, most expressing outrage at the blatant discrimination. The hashtag hotel discrimination began trending locally. Aria's phone buzzed. Her assistant's voice came through her earpiece. Ms. Blackwood, the helicopter pilot is ready for departure whenever you are. She ended the call discreetly, but Marcus had overheard enough to become suspicious. Who exactly are you trying to fool? He sneered. Helicopter, right? Security will escort you out before you cause any more trouble. Two security guards approached from opposite ends of the lobby. They were large men in dark uniforms, looking more like bouncers than professional hotel security. Other guests gathered around, phones out, recording everything. Aria remained perfectly composed, making notes in a small leather journal. Her handwriting was precise, documenting every word, every gesture, every witness present. This is your final warning, Marcus said, his voice rising. "Leave now, or we'll call the police for trespassing." Aria looked up from her notes, her dark eyes meeting Marcus's with unsettling intensity. "I tried to do this quietly," she said almost to herself. She closed her journal and placed it carefully in her briefcase. The legal documents inside caught the light briefly, revealing corporate seals and official stamps. Several guests noticed the briefcase's expensive leather and solid gold hardware. The live stream had exploded to over 15,000 viewers. Comments flooded in from around the world, expressing shock and anger at the treatment Aria was receiving. Local news outlets began picking up the story through social media alerts. Aria's phone continued buzzing with corporate calls, but she ignored them all. Her focus remained laser-sharp on the situation unfolding before her. Marcus gestured to the security guards. "Escort this woman off the property immediately. If she resists, call the police." Aria stood slowly, shouldering her briefcase with practiced ease. The guards flanked her on either side, preparing to guide her toward the exit. The crowd of onlookers had grown to nearly 40 people, including hotel staff, guests, and several people who had wandered in from the street after seeing the commotion on social media. As they began walking toward the massive glass doors, Aria spoke just loud enough for the microphones to catch her words. "Some lessons can only be learned the hard way." The security guards hesitated for just a moment, something in her tone giving them pause. But Marcus waved them forward impatiently, and they continued their march toward what everyone believed would be Aria's humiliating exit. The hotel's general manager, Victoria Cross, emerged from the executive elevator, looking flustered. She had been alerted by the front desk about a situation developing in the lobby. Victoria was an impeccably dressed woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled into a tight bun and wearing a designer suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. "What on earth is going on here?" Victoria demanded, surveying the crowd of onlookers and the security guards flanking Aria. Marcus rushed to explain. "This woman has been causing a disturbance, claiming she has a reservation. She's clearly not a legitimate guest. We're removing her from the premises." Victoria's eyes swept over Aria with practiced judgment. Years of managing luxury hotels had taught her to assess guests' wealth and status within seconds. Aria's expensive suit was noted but dismissed. Victoria had seen plenty of people dress beyond their means to gain access to exclusive venues. "Ma'am, I apologize for any confusion," Victoria said with false politeness. "However, this is a private establishment. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone who doesn't meet our standards." The live stream viewer count had exploded past 25,000. Multiple angles were now being broadcast simultaneously as other guests joined the streaming. The hotel's Wi-Fi was straining under the sudden surge of uploads and social media activity. Aria checked her phone. 11:02 a.m. board meeting in 58 minutes. The helicopter pilot had texted, "Ready for immediate departure, Ms. Blackwood. Weather window closing at noon." "Your standards," Aria repeated thoughtfully, making another note in her journal. "Could you clarify what those standards specifically entail?" Victoria's face flushed slightly. "Well, obviously our guests must be able to afford our accommodations and conduct themselves appropriately." "I see," Aria said. She pulled out her Platinum American Express Black card and placed it on the nearby marble table. The card was made of actual titanium and weighed noticeably more than standard credit cards. Only individuals with extremely high net worth could obtain such cards. Marcus scoffed loudly. "These fake cards are getting more sophisticated every day. You can buy anything online now." A few guests gasped. They recognized the exclusive card and knew it was impossible to counterfeit due to its unique weight and security features. The live stream comments exploded with viewers pointing out that Marcus was clearly wrong about the card's authenticity. Aria's legal team began calling. Her phone displayed Thornfield Corporate Legal on the screen. She declined the call but sent a quick text. "Proceed with documentation. Full authority granted." At 11:15 a.m., Aria's assistant called again. This time Aria answered on speakerphone. "Ms. Blackwood, the board members are asking about your ETA," the assistant said. "The quarterly reports are ready for your review and the acquisition documents need your signature." Aria ended the call quickly, but not before several people in the lobby had heard the conversation. Victoria and Marcus exchanged uncertain glances. Acquisition documents, whispered one guest to another. What kind of person discusses acquisitions while being thrown out of a hotel? The local news had arrived. A reporter with a professional camera crew pushed through the crowd, having been alerted by the trending social media coverage. The reporter immediately began interviewing witnesses and livestream participants. This is David Chun, Channel 11 News, reporting live from the Atlanta Grand Hotel, where an apparent case of discrimination is unfolding in real time. The reporter announced to his camera. Victoria's face went pale. Negative news coverage was the last thing the hotel needed, especially during peak tourist season. Hotel occupancy rates were already down 18% compared to the previous year. Everyone needs to calm down, Victoria announced loudly. This is being blown out of proportion. We're simply following standard hotel policies. Aria looked up from her journal. Standard policies? Interesting phrase. She made another note. The crowd had grown larger. Hotel guests from upper floors had come down after seeing the news alerts on their phones. Several influential local business leaders were among the witnesses, including 2 city council members and a federal judge who happened to be staying at the hotel. Judge Catherine Reed stepped forward. She was a distinguished black woman in her 60s who had been appointed to the federal bench by the president 3 years earlier. "Excuse me," Judge Reed said, addressing Victoria directly. "I'm Judge Reed, Federal District Court. I've been observing this situation and I'm concerned about potential civil rights violations occurring on these premises." Victoria's confidence wavered visibly. The presence of a federal judge changed everything. "Your Honor, we're simply following our established procedures." "Procedures that involve refusing service based on racial profiling?" Judge Reed asked pointedly. "I've been watching from the mezzanine level. This woman has presented valid identification and payment methods, yet your staff continues to refuse service." The live stream viewers peaked at 47,000 people. Hashtag hotel discrimination was now trending nationally. Major news outlets were picking up the story through their social media monitoring systems. Aria's phone buzzed with another call from corporate legal. This time, she answered briefly. "Yes, I authorize full documentation and immediate implementation of Protocol 7. She ended the call and looked directly at Victoria. Protocol 7 has some very specific legal implications. Victoria looked confused and increasingly nervous. Marcus appeared to be second-guessing his earlier confidence. At 11:23 a.m., Aria received a text from her legal team. "All documents prepared and filed. Awaiting your signal for execution." Aria typed back. "Stand by. Still recording everything for evidence." 3 security guards now surrounded Aria, but their demeanor had changed. The presence of Judge Reed, the news cameras, and the massive social media attention had made them reluctant to physically remove someone who might have legitimate legal standing. "Ma'am," one of the guards said quietly to Aria, "perhaps we could resolve this more privately." Aria shook her head. Privacy was an option 15 minutes ago. Now we're well past that point. Victoria made one final attempt to control the situation. "Security, please escort this individual from the property immediately. If she refuses to leave, call the police for trespassing." The crowd fell silent. This was the moment of truth. Would Aria be humiliated and forced to leave, or did she have some hidden card to play? Aria calmly opened her briefcase fully for the first time. Inside, clearly visible to everyone present, were legal documents, corporate seals, and official letterheads. She pulled out a folder marked "Confidential, Executive Level Only." "Before we proceed," Aria said, her voice carrying clearly across the silent lobby, "I should mention that everything happening here today has been recorded by security cameras, live streams, news cameras, and witnessed by a federal judge. The legal implications of your next actions will be permanent and far-reaching." Victoria hesitated. Something in Aria's tone suggested this situation was not what it appeared to be. Aria continued, "You have 30 seconds to reconsider your approach. After that, the consequences become irreversible." The entire lobby held its breath, waiting to see who would blink first in this high-stakes confrontation. Aria reached into her briefcase and withdrew a leather portfolio embossed with gold lettering. The silence in the lobby was deafening as she opened it with deliberate precision. Inside were official documents bearing corporate seals, legal stamps, and signatures. She held up her driver's license first, ensuring the news cameras could capture it clearly. Aria Elizabeth Blackwood, she announced, her voice carrying across the marble expanse. Next, she produced a corporate identification badge with her photograph. Chief Executive Officer, Thornfield Hospitality Group. Victoria's face drained of all color. Marcus took an involuntary step backward. The live stream chat exploded with viewers typing "plot twist" and "oh my god" in rapid succession. Aria continued with calm authority. I purchased this hotel chain 3 months ago through a private equity acquisition. The paperwork was finalized on March 15th. All employees received notification emails on March 18th. She turned to face Victoria directly. Check your corporate email, Miss Cross. You'll find 17 unread messages from the new ownership group, including mandatory diversity training schedules and updated discrimination policies. Victoria fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. Her corporate email showed exactly what Aria had described. Multiple unopened messages from Thornfield Hospitality Group headquarters, including several marked urgent new ownership protocols. The news reporter pushed forward with his microphone. Miss Blackwood, are you saying you own this entire hotel chain? 89 properties across 12 states, Aria confirmed. $2.1 billion in annual revenue. I've been conducting what we call field assessments to evaluate operational standards across our locations. Marcus's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. He had just discriminated against his own ultimate boss, the woman who literally signed his paychecks. Aria pulled out her phone and opened a sophisticated business application. This particular location generates approximately $3.7 million annually. Last quarter's performance review indicated concerning trends in guest satisfaction scores and employee turnover rates. Judge Reed stepped forward, her expression grave. Miss Blackwood, have you documented discrimination at other properties as well? 847 incidents across 12 locations in the past 18 months, Aria replied, consulting her notes, ranging from subtle bias to overt refusal of service. Today's incident brings the total to 848. The live stream viewer count hit 73,000 people. Major news networks were now sending crews to the hotel. CNN, Fox News, and local affiliates all had reporters en route. Victoria tried to salvage the situation. Ms. Blackwood, if I had known. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. Aria's expression remained neutral. The training materials clearly state that discrimination is grounds for immediate termination, regardless of the victim's identity or status. The policy doesn't include exceptions for when you know who someone is. She opened another document from her briefcase. Employment contracts for all management-level staff include a morality clause. Section 4.7 specifically addresses discrimination and harassment. Violation results in immediate termination without severance. Marcus's career flashed before his eyes. 23 years in hospitality management, and he had just violated the most basic principle of customer service. Aria addressed the crowd that had gathered. For those streaming this live, I want to be clear about something. I didn't plan to reveal my identity today. I came here as part of a routine operational assessment, hoping to check in quietly and observe normal business operations. She gestured toward Emma, who had been silent behind the front desk. Miss Foster here made that impossible within the first 30 seconds of our interaction. Emma finally found her voice. I didn't know. You can't blame me for not recognizing you. Aria's response was measured and devastating. The training materials include photographs of all executive leadership, but more importantly, the issue isn't recognition. The issue is that you felt comfortable treating anyone this way, regardless of who they might be. The federal judge nodded approvingly. Miss Blackwood raises a crucial point. Civil rights violations don't become acceptable simply because you don't recognize your victim's status or importance. Aria's phone buzzed with a call from her board of directors. She answered on speaker, aware that everything was being recorded. Aria, we're seeing the news coverage, came the voice of board chairman Michael Steele. Do you need us to initiate crisis management protocols? No crisis to manage, Michael, Aria replied calmly. This is exactly the kind of operational intelligence we needed to implement systematic reforms. Have the legal team prepare the standard discrimination response package. Understood. Full support for whatever actions you deem necessary. Aria ended the call and addressed Victoria again. Miss Cross, you have 2 minutes to access your corporate email and review the policies that have been in effect for 3 months. After that, we'll discuss your employment status. The news cameras captured every word. This wasn't just a story about discrimination anymore. It was a masterclass in corporate accountability and leadership under pressure. A guest from the upper floors approached respectfully. He was Dr. Leonard Washington, a prominent civil rights attorney who had been following the live stream from his room. Ms. Blackwood, I've been documenting this entire incident, Dr. Washington said. Would you be interested in legal representation for potential civil rights violations? Aria smiled slightly. Thank you, Dr. Washington, but my legal team is already handling documentation. However, I appreciate your professional concern. She turned back to the hotel staff. What's happening here today isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about creating systems where this behavior becomes impossible. The live stream comments were overwhelmingly supportive. Viewers from around the world were sharing their own stories of discrimination and praising Aria's composed handling of the situation. Aria checked her watch. 11:47 a.m. board meeting in 13 minutes. The helicopter will wait, she announced to no one in particular. Some things are more important than schedules. She addressed the news reporter directly. I want your viewers to understand something crucial. This incident represents a systemic problem in the hospitality industry. Individual punishment won't solve it. We need comprehensive policy changes, ongoing training, and accountability systems that prevent discrimination before it occurs. Victoria had finally accessed her corporate email. Her face went from pale to ashen as she read the messages she had ignored for 3 months. The new policies, they're all here, Victoria whispered. Mandatory bias training, anonymous reporting systems, monthly diversity audits, Aria confirmed. All implemented specifically to prevent what happened here today. Yet here we are. Marcus slumped against the reception desk. His career in hospitality was effectively over, and he knew it. 3 discrimination complaints in his employment file had already put him on thin ice. This public incident would make him unemployable in the industry. Aria opened her final document, a comprehensive report on discrimination incidents across the Thornfield Hospitality Group properties. What we're witnessing today isn't isolated, she announced to the cameras. It's part of a pattern that requires systematic intervention. Traditional approaches haven't worked. It's time for a different strategy. The crowd sensed that something significant was about to happen. The live stream audience leaned forward metaphorically, waiting for Aria's next move. Judge Reed spoke up. Ms. Blackwood, you've handled this situation with remarkable grace. What do you plan to do next? Aria closed her briefcase with a decisive snap. We're going upstairs to the boardroom. It's time for some immediate policy implementations and personnel decisions. She looked directly into the news cameras. Anyone who wants to witness how real change happens in corporate America is welcome to observe. Transparency is the only way to ensure accountability. The crowd began moving toward the executive elevators. This story was far from over. The executive elevator rose silently to the hotel's penthouse boardroom. Aria stood calmly in the center while Victoria, Marcus, Emma, and the 3 security guards crowded uncomfortably around the perimeter. Judge Reed and the news crew accompanied them, along with Dr. Washington and several witnesses. The boardroom doors opened to reveal a stunning space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta. A massive mahogany conference table dominated the room, surrounded by leather chairs that cost more than most people's monthly salaries. Aria walked directly to the head of the table and activated a wall-mounted display system. Corporate logos and financial data immediately filled the screens around the room. Before we address today's incident, Aria began. Let's review some relevant data about Thornfield Hospitality Group's current performance and legal exposure. The first slide showed revenue figures. Annual gross revenue, $2.1 billion. Net profit margin, 18.4%. Legal settlement reserves, $122.7 million. Victoria shifted uncomfortably in her chair. The legal reserves were specifically allocated for discrimination lawsuits and related settlements. Miss Cross, Aria continued. Your property generates $3.7 million annually. Your personal compensation package totals $185,000 per year, including benefits and performance bonuses. The next slide displayed employee records. Mr. Sterling, your employment history shows 3 documented discrimination complaints over the past 4 years. 2 resulted in mandatory counseling. The third placed you on probationary status. Marcus's face had turned gray. He hadn't realized his corporate file was so detailed or damaging. Miss Foster, Aria addressed Emma. You were hired 6 weeks ago specifically because your predecessor was terminated for similar discriminatory behavior toward guests. Emma's eyes widened. She had never been told why the previous employee was fired. Aria clicked to a legal document. All management-level employees sign contracts with morality clauses. Section 4.7 addresses discrimination and harassment. Violation results in immediate termination without severance pay or unemployment benefits. She paused to let that information sink in. Federal anti-discrimination laws carry potential penalties up to $50,000 per incident for businesses our size. Repeat violations can result in federal oversight and mandatory compliance monitoring. Dr. Washington leaned forward. Ms. Blackwood, are you documenting pattern discrimination for federal reporting? The Department of Justice has been monitoring hospitality industry discrimination trends, Aria confirmed. Our voluntary compliance program was designed to avoid federal intervention. Today's incident threatens that status. She clicked to the next slide, a map showing all Thornfield Hospitality Group properties with red dots marking locations where discrimination incidents had been documented. 47 properties show concerning patterns. 12 locations require immediate management restructuring. This property ranks number 3 for severity of incidents and management response failures. Victoria found her voice. Miss Blackwood, I had no idea the problems were so widespread. The corporate communications were sent to your email address 17 times. Aria interrupted, including mandatory training schedules, policy updates, and compliance deadlines. All ignored. The display showed Victoria's email logs, complete with read receipts and response tracking. The evidence was undeniable. Aria's phone buzzed with a call from the corporate legal department. She answered on speaker. Aria, we've completed the incident documentation, came the voice of lead counsel, Rachel Martinez. All federal reporting requirements have been met. The insurance company has been notified of potential claims. Thank you, Rachel. What's our legal exposure assessment for today's incident alone? Given the public nature and documented witnesses, we're looking at potential settlements between $200,000 and $500,000. That's before considering punitive damages or federal penalties. Aria ended the call and faced her employees. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just created a $500,000 liability for this company through 30 minutes of discriminatory behavior. The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning system. However, Aria continued, I'm more concerned about the systemic implications than the financial costs. This incident represents a failure of leadership, training, and corporate culture. She clicked to a new presentation titled Immediate Action Plan. Effective immediately, the following changes will be implemented across all Thornfield Hospitality Group properties. The first bullet point appeared. Mandatory unconscious bias training for all customer-facing employees, to be completed within 30 days. Second, implementation of the Thornfield Welcome application, allowing anonymous reporting of discrimination incidents by guests and employees. Third, monthly diversity audits conducted by third-party consulting firms, with results published in quarterly corporate reports. Victoria raised her hand tentatively. Ms. Blackwood, what about current management positions? Aria's expression remained neutral. That depends on individual accountability and willingness to embrace these changes. She clicked to employee evaluation criteria. All management positions will be subject to performance reviews focusing on diversity, inclusion, and guest satisfaction metrics. Failure to meet standards will result in termination or reassignment. Marcus finally spoke. Ma'am, I know I made a serious mistake today. Is there any possibility of remedial action or additional training? Aria considered his question carefully. Mr. Sterling, this is your 4th documented incident. At what point does training become enabling? How many guests should experience discrimination while we continue attempting to reform your behavior? The news cameras captured every word. This wasn't just corporate discipline. It was a public demonstration of accountability and action. Judge Reed addressed the room. Ms. Blackwood, you're creating what appears to be a comprehensive response to institutional discrimination. How do you plan to ensure these changes are implemented consistently? Excellent question, Your Honor. We're partnering with the Southern Poverty Law Center and the NAACP to develop industry-wide best practices. Our protocols will be shared with competitor hotels to create sector-wide improvements. Aria clicked to financial projections. We're investing $500,000 annually in discrimination prevention programs. Guest satisfaction scores at our reformed properties have improved by an average of 23%. She paused for effect. Treating people with dignity and respect isn't just morally correct, it's profitable. The live stream audience had grown to over 150,000 viewers. Comments poured in from people sharing their own discrimination experiences and praising Aria's systematic approach to change. Aria addressed the cameras directly. What you're witnessing today is how institutional change happens, not through anger or revenge, but through systematic policy implementation and accountability measures. She stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. Every person deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their race, economic status, or social position. That's not negotiable. Turning back to face the room, Aria delivered her ultimatum. You have 24 hours to decide whether you want to be part of the solution or continue being part of the problem. Personnel decisions will be finalized tomorrow morning. The corporate showdown had revealed the true scope of both the problem and Aria's comprehensive solution. The following morning, Aria convened the hotel staff in the main conference room. The atmosphere was tense but respectful. Word had spread throughout the hospitality industry overnight. The Thornfield Hospitality Group story had gone viral globally, with over 3 million social media shares and coverage in major international news outlets. Victoria Cross had submitted her resignation letter at 6 a.m., citing personal responsibility for management failures and discriminatory practices. Her letter included a public apology and commitment to undergo extensive bias training before seeking future employment. Marcus Sterling had been terminated effective immediately. His employment contract's morality clause voided any severance pay or benefits. 3 other hotels had already declined his applications for similar positions after conducting basic background checks. Emma Foster had also been terminated during her probationary period. However, Aria had arranged for her to attend a comprehensive customer service and cultural sensitivity program at a community college, with tuition paid by the Thornfield Foundation. The 3 security guards received formal reprimands and mandatory retraining. They would remain on probationary status for 6 months, with their continued employment dependent on successful completion of bias training programs. Aria addressed the remaining staff with characteristic directness. Yesterday's incident could have destroyed careers and damaged this company's reputation permanently. Instead, we're using it as a catalyst for industry-wide change. She outlined the comprehensive reforms being implemented across all Thornfield Hospitality Group properties. The Thornfield Welcome mobile application had been downloaded over 50,000 times in 24 hours, with guests reporting positive experiences and several discrimination incidents at competitor hotels. We're partnering with Morehouse College's business school to create the first hospitality industry discrimination prevention curriculum, Aria announced. Graduates will receive preferred hiring status across our properties. The staff listened attentively as Aria detailed the new accountability systems. Guest satisfaction surveys now included specific questions about discriminatory treatment. Monthly diversity audits would be conducted by independent firms, with results published publicly. Most importantly, Aria continued, we're implementing a profit-sharing program tied to diversity and inclusion metrics. When this hotel demonstrates improved guest satisfaction scores from underrepresented communities, every employee benefits financially. The room's energy shifted noticeably. Staff members realized these changes weren't punitive measures, but opportunities for professional growth and financial improvement. Dr. Washington, who had remained as an observer, addressed the group. Ms. Blackwood has created a model that other industries should study. You're part of something historically significant. Aria nodded appreciatively. Change happens when good people decide to do better. Everyone in this room has that opportunity. The hiring process had already begun for new management positions. Aria had received over 2,000 applications from hospitality professionals interested in working for a company with explicit anti-discrimination policies. Within a week, the hotel's guest satisfaction scores had improved dramatically. Online reviews praised the staff's professionalism and the welcoming atmosphere. Bookings increased by 37% as travelers specifically chose Thornfield Hospitality Group properties to support their anti-discrimination stance. The Thornfield Foundation, established with a $5 million endowment, began funding bias training programs at hospitality schools nationwide. Professional organizations invited Aria to speak at conferences about systematic discrimination prevention. Major hotel chains contacted Thornfield Hospitality Group requesting consultation on implementing similar policies. Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt all announced enhanced diversity training programs inspired by Aria's approach. The federal government took notice as well. The Department of Justice cited Thornfield Hospitality Group as a model for voluntary compliance with anti-discrimination laws. Senator Elizabeth Warren referenced the incident during a congressional hearing on corporate responsibility. Most significantly, discrimination incidents across Thornfield properties decreased by 94% within 6 months. Employee satisfaction surveys showed marked improvement in workplace culture and professional development opportunities. Aria had proven that systematic change was not only possible, but profitable. The company's stock price increased by 18% as investors recognized the value of proactive anti-discrimination policies. Guest loyalty scores reached industry-leading levels. The Thornfield Welcome app had been adopted by other businesses, creating a network of discrimination-free establishments nationwide. The incident that began with Aria being dragged through a hotel lobby had transformed into a movement for institutional change. Black stories, life stories, and touching stories like Aria's demonstrated that individual courage could create systematic transformation. Other real-life stories began emerging as people felt empowered to report discrimination incidents. The Thornfield model provided a blueprint for addressing these issues constructively rather than punitively. Aria's approach had proven that true power lay not in crushing opposition, but in creating systems where discrimination became impossible. The hospitality industry would never be the same. 6 months after the incident, Aria Blackwood stood before a packed auditorium at Harvard Business School. Students, faculty, and industry leaders had gathered to hear her present the case study that had revolutionized hospitality management. True power isn't about crushing opposition, Aria told the audience. It's about creating systems where opposition becomes unnecessary. The Thornfield Hospitality Group had become the industry standard for diversity and inclusion. Their comprehensive approach had been studied, replicated, and improved upon by companies worldwide. These real-life stories of transformation demonstrated how individual courage could spark institutional change. Aria's personal legacy extended far beyond business metrics. She had been invited to speak at the United Nations about systematic discrimination prevention. Harvard Business Review had published her methodology as required reading for corporate leadership programs. The social impact was measurable and significant. Discrimination reporting had increased by 300% across the hospitality industry, but actual incidents had decreased by 67%. The combination of transparency and accountability had created cultural change. Employee satisfaction across Thornfield properties had reached unprecedented levels. Staff turnover decreased by 45% as workers felt valued and professionally supported. The profit-sharing program linked to diversity metrics had distributed over $2 million to employees. Guest loyalty remained at industry-leading levels. Travelers specifically chose Thornfield properties because they represented safety and dignity for all guests. Revenue growth had exceeded 23% annually. Other industries had adopted Thornfield protocols. Retail chains, restaurants, and service businesses implemented similar accountability systems. The touching stories of individual transformation had inspired systematic change across multiple sectors. Aria concluded her Harvard presentation with characteristic wisdom. We didn't eliminate discrimination through punishment or revenge. We eliminated it by making it incompatible with success. The audience gave her a standing ovation, but Aria's focus remained on the future. The Thornfield Foundation continued funding bias prevention programs. New initiatives targeted emerging forms of discrimination in digital commerce and remote services. The Black stories of struggle and triumph continued inspiring others to demand better treatment and create systematic solutions. Aria's example proved that quiet leadership could achieve more than loud confrontation. What workplace discrimination have you witnessed or experienced? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters and can inspire others to take action. If this video motivated you to stand up for systemic change in your community or workplace, hit the subscribe button for more stories of quiet power overcoming loud prejudice. Together we can build systems where everyone belongs and dignity is non-negotiable.